Trump and Autoimmune Disease. A tweet by CatGirlKulak. People ask me why I'm so keen on Trump. Trump is not an exceptional political thinker. He's a fairly awful organizer and a worse hirer of people, despite his claims otherwise. Indeed, one need only look at his choices for the Department of Justice or his COVID response to see him consistently hiring the absolute worst enemies of his supporters and indeed himself. He seemingly only hired people anyone on the 2008 Ron Paul campaign could have predicted would have betrayed him, and indeed would have been able to predict it in 2008. Ex-Bush people are loyal to the regime, hate their own base, and view ordinary Americans as the enemy? Who would have guessed? And yet little of that matters. And to understand why, you have to understand autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases result when the immune system, the thing that is supposed to protect the body from outside threats, goes haywire and attacks the body in response to something that is no threat at all. All immune responses and most external disease treatments have some drawbacks. Minor immune responses like a fever or the mucus responses of the sinuses make physical exertion torturous, for example. But as the response gets more extreme, the more they threaten the patient itself. A medical response like chemo might kill cancer, but it's also a poison, potentially fatal to a patient if not measured precisely. Likewise, the body's immune responses can be fatal. High fevers can result in death or brain damage, and the anaphylaxis response, a flood of chemicals and white blood cells meant to combat the most dangerous exposures, can and does kill people. Of course, we are all familiar with allergies, where a harmless exposure, such as certain pollens or nuts, can provoke devastating and sometimes fatal autoimmune responses. Trump provokes such an autoimmune response in the regime. He is not a Hitlerian master of oratory or political organizing and maneuvering. He is not even the most impressive populist America has produced, and he is certainly not a bloodthirsty ideological and military political genius like Lenin or Mao, which sadly the right libertarians have failed to produce despite rivaling the communists in their output of theory and economic texts. Yet, Trump activates the class and ethnic disgust response of the regime so violently that the American regime might actually kill itself trying to reject him. Trump should have been like Ronald Reagan, an aging artifact of an older generation keen to compromise with the regime, easily appeased with deals that would make him at least look like he's winning, and ultimately uncommitted to combating either the security state or the civil rights priesthood, the first of whom defeated JFK and the combo of whom took down Nixon. And yet this man who showed up stating that he wanted to make big, beautiful deals, and who was incapable of even hiring anyone who thought like his movement, they went to DEFCON 1 and nearly destroyed the Republic to stop him, because they hate his voters that much. Whether it be the Russiagate fiasco, the COVID response, the summer of Floyd, the sudden rise of the censorship regime, the election fortification, the ideological thrust through the military, nothing has damaged regime legitimacy or long-term viability, or indeed financial solvency. Look up how much money was printed and debt assumed during COVID, largely to get mail-in voting and to force people online, where their political organizing could be censored, than the regime's own response to Trump. It would take the most bloodthirsty, hateful, Machiavellian, and genius right libertarian, a ruthless and risky campaign of eternal crisis and dumb luck to get half the damage inflicted on the regime, even with the presidency. And Trump produced such profound damage and such an extreme break between America's totalitarian governing institutions and its populace by doing nothing and letting their madness inflict it on themselves. Trump is a peanut butter sandwich I want to shove down their dorky throats. This was a long post on X by CatGirlKulak.